Today, we're filming inside the Naugatuck train station, and we're joined with members of the Naugatuck Historical Society, with Wendy Murphy, who is the president of the society, and with Bridget, Mariano, and your title here is what?
I'm the secretary.
You're the secretary. Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. Well, thank you, ladies. I appreciate you just having me here, and this is great. And actually, why don't we start talking a little bit about the building itself? This train station itself is near the actual train station that's used today by Metro North, but this was the original train station, right?
Yes, this was the original train station. It was built by Henry Bacon, who also was the architect for the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. Wow. It was built about 1910. We've had some recent disagreements about the actual building date, but about 1910. And it was part of John Howard Whittemore's plan for the City Beautiful movement, and he felt that it was very important that the first thing people saw when they came into town was something beautiful, and the last thing they saw when they left should be something beautiful. And that would encourage visitors.
John Whittemore,
he was our big philanthropist.
Oh, okay.
He paid for a number of our buildings in town. We were very fortunate because he had visions and plans for things like city planning and empty space and zoning long before anybody thought about, oh wait, what's this town going to look like in 40 years? If we don't plan for the space now, it's not going to happen. And he had the foresight to plan space and buildings in town.
Wow.
He actually, I want to go back to the train station.
Sure.
At one point, the train tracks ran through the center of town, and there was another earlier train station by the firehouse.
Okay.
But he wanted this train station to be more closer to the river, and so that the downtown area would be absent of the train station.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
The important piece about John Howard Whittemore, as far as the architecture of the town goes, is that he employed in the late 1800s and early 1900s the most important architects in the country.
Oh,
It was
really?
a firm called McKinley and White.
Okay.
Stanford White was one of the architects, and he's considered the architect who planned most of the buildings here.
Wow.
Henry Bacon, who was the architect for this building, when he began his work, started out in the firm. So there's a big connection with some of the most important architects of that era. And because John Howard Whittemore was so interested in having a beautiful town, he always wanted to invest. And so we were very fortunate.
Absolutely.
We have the largest concentration of McKinley and White buildings anywhere. So even though they built in Newport, Rhode Island and New York City, there's no place that has as many buildings as we do in a square mile area. And we have the only McKinley and White church.
Okay.
They only made one, and it's enough.
What's unique about it?
It's not that it's unique itself, it's that they didn't build churches.
Oh.
There was also modeled on St. Martin in the Fields.
Oh, okay.
And it's a congregational church, and at that time, most of the congregational churches in New England are the wooden ones with the tall steeples. This is a brick building.
Okay.
It's a stunning building.
Oh, wow.
It's sort of special.
And where is it?
It's right on the green.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay. So that's pretty much how the building is set up now. As far as who you are concerned, where are you from, Naugatuck originally? How did you get involved with Naugatuck Historical Society?
That's her fault.
That's true. When did you start with?
Wendy and I worked at the library together.
Oh, really?
For some time. And of course, I was a member of the Historical Society for a number of years before Wendy joined. And I was always trying to recruit.
Right.
So when Wendy was graduating from college and doing a dissertation or a thesis on the city beautiful.
Oh, really? Where did you go?
I was on the 20-year plan, but I graduated from Sacred Heart University.
Oh, okay. So you remember?
For the last couple of years, yes.
Okay. Believe in that. Go ahead.
So, of course, she was a history major, so
Right.
it was natural.
And what is that city beautiful?
Well, the City Beautiful movement was an official movement that started with the White City in Chicago at the World's Fair. But what the idea was that if you have a beautiful place, people will want to come. If you have beautiful buildings and you use them for schools, teachers are inspired. If teachers are inspired, students are inspired. If students are inspired, students come to school and they learn. But John Howard Whittemore believed that if you had a beautiful place, people would be happier, they would be healthier, property values would go up, business would go up, and it was a whole spiraling way to build a whole town economy.
And this, you said this started in Chicago, or
John Howard Whittemore had a lot of the same views and opinions that started before the City Beautiful movement officially began in Chicago. But there was a lot of people all over the country who had similar ideas. It just didn't become a movement.
And you're originally from Chicago?
I am originally from Chicago, yes.
Interesting coincidence.
Yes, yes. And I didn't know about the City Beautiful movement when I was in Chicago.
When did you move out east?
I came out about 1991 when I got engaged, moved out here, transferred, and stopped and had a family.
There you go. That's good. And is your husband from this area?
Yes, he is from about 1.5 miles from where we live now.
Oh, okay.
My mother-in-law is from here.
Same daughter?
Yeah, she was my grandmother-in-law who I took care of for a while, was a teacher in town. So yes, there's a lot of generations of Murphys. Well, there's not Murphys because that was the Baxters.
What did she teach?
My grandmother taught English, or my grandmother-in-law taught English, and my mother-in-law teaches Spanish. Yep, at Holy Cross.
Oh, excellent. And you're from where?
I'm originally from the Haven, but my husband is from Naugatuck. So, of course, came to live in Naugatuck. Interestingly enough, my ex-grandmother, Wendy's husband's grandmother, was one of my husband's teachers also.
Oh, really? That is really interesting. So I guess back to the historical side itself. Let's talk a little bit about that. How that was founded, did it work with other communities, things like that? Was it done to itself? And kind of where it's actually where it sits now.
1859 was the first meeting, and I think it was 19.
That was quite the history.
1959.
Civil War time, right?
We've done a lot of Civil War. Emancipation Proclamation is 150 years old. 1959. And I think it was 12 people who attended the first meeting. It was $1 to join, and Ida Wood was the person who brought them all together.
And she is who?
Ida Wood she actually was an antique dealer, but she was very interested in history. And she just felt that there should be a historical society. She had a lot of information, and she recruited or perhaps worked closely with our first town historian, whose name was Dana Blackwell. He's very, very well known for his accomplishments in history over the course of the years. Neither of them are living now. They really were very instrumental in getting the historical society started. And over the course of years, they always were interested in having a museum. And of course, it's difficult to raise money to build it. The Naugatuck Savings Bank gave them a room to display furniture and other artifacts at one point. And another time, I think that there was another time when, before they had the room at the Naugatuck Savings Bank, they just were able to display certain things in the lobby of the Savings Bank. So they were a very good sponsor of the Historical Society down through the years, very supportive. And eventually, it worked out that we were able to get this building.
So it pretty much went from the bank to here? Or was there
yes, we're in the bank. Yes.
Wow, that's great. This is beautiful. I mean, just the space you have, people can come in and you can have their meetings held here. We've already filled Chester Canocchi and Tom Hill from the Development Commission, and the Development Commission had an open forum about the future of Naugatuck from an economic standpoint, which includes history and culture. I know you're involved in culture as well. So So I think that's great. I mean, it's great that you're able to have a building that literally is historic and can be used today.
Yes, yeah. We always say that actually the building is our greatest art.
Yeah.
Really, it is true.
Actually, can you talk? I know we're not going to talk about it. Can you talk, speak to something like, for example, this behind us, what is this? This is the former town hall. So where was this, and a little bit of history about this particular building?
I know that it's not in existence anymore.
Okay.
It was where the current town hall is.
Oh, right.
Yes, it was in the same place. And like many town halls of that era, it had a theater.
Oh, wow.
So it was more of a community center than a town hall.
Oh, okay.
It was multi-purpose like many town halls.
Wow.
But it was built in 1877 and it came down in 1964 for the current modern
Exactly.
building
State of the
that's
art.
up. Yes.
You know, it's interesting because if you look at this up here, it's like it was in a school classroom. You know, like you said.
Yep, it was a stage, yeah.
I think also what my husband told me is the 8th grade graduations used to take place.
Oh, really? See that? I can see that. Definitely.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, is there anything just sort of history and culture? For example, there's Sterling Opera House is very good on the National Historic Register, and a lot of roads around the kind of historic. And for the longest time, I didn't even know there was one in Ansonia too. There's an opera house in Ansonia that I guess for whatever reason doesn't get much attention. This is one Derby. Is there one, or was there ever one in Naugatuck or even in the surrounding
No,
area?
that building
That
was
was
used
pretty
for
much it.
performances, yeah.
And I know that if we go up further up Route 8, you get Thompson.
Yes, yeah, no, I don't think there, as far as I know, there was here.
There was some outdoor auditorium, there was some outdoor staging area up near Hillside School that was there, that used to be between, where the parking lot actually is for Hillside School now. So Hillside School is one of the buildings that's also was built by John Howard Whittemore. It was the high school for a number of years, but it's also a Ripley's, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yes, along that brick road, you could enter at the ground level on 3 different floors from the same street.
Oh, wow.
So you started and you can go in and you're really in the basement, but it's ground level, and then you go up a little bit and you go in again and you're on the first floor.
It's like a Hesher painting. Where you kind of keep going and you don't even know where you are. That's great. Now, I'm sorry, but you said brick road. It made me think of the Wizard of Oz. Yeah,
Yes.
you talked a little bit about what was the last name?
Greenberg. Adrian Greenberg was born 1903 here in Naugatuck. He went to Salem School in Naugatuck and Naugatuck High School. His parents ran a millinery store in Naugatuck, but they catered to the wealthy people in the area. They traveled to New York every week, and they always brought the latest styles and hats and other clothing. So that he grew up in that milieu where people were designing things, and especially hats. Hats were very important. If you ever see any of his movies, the hats are extraordinary. So when he graduated from high school, he was sent to the Fashion Institute in New York, but he didn't like it very much for whatever reason. He eventually went to Paris, and in Paris he was discovered, I think, don't quote me on this one, there was some connection with Rudolph Valentino and his wife, and he started to design them. Eventually came back to New York, he was discovered, went to Hollywood, and he designed clothing for Mariano, all those kinds of stars in the 1930s. And then, of course, we talk a lot about the Wizard of Oz. Because he did all of the designs, of the clothing designs.
When he was doing that, where was he actually producing and designing it? Was it in Hollywood? So he just
He was just the designer.
Right, but he had to go out there to do that.
Oh, yeah.
But the story is, by the time he got the job of designing those costumes, he had moved out of Naugatuck. He was living in Hollywood.
Oh, he was doing Credit Card.
Oh, yes.
It was 39 miles.
Yes, it was prior to that, yeah.
But the story is that while he was at school at Salem in Naugatuck, that was when he did all of his initial sketches for the Wizard of Oz. And that was his favorite book, and he had a whole sketchbook of different designs and how he wanted the costumes to be. And state, but not Naugatuck. You need to go into storage, you need to go find my
those
schedule.
sketches still exist?
I am sure they do, but they don't want us.
We all wish that we could have something to think about. But when you see anything of his on eBay, like the dress,
Right.
the dresses or the shoes, they're a little out of our league.
Oh, yeah, that's true, sure. So, and that actually makes me think, are there other notable Naugatuck people who grew up here, or,
Well, we haven't really talked about Charles Goodyear.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We really talked about
Let's
that.
talk about him. I'd like to have him talk about engineering and celebrate. Well, one thing that's nice about Goodyear, you guys celebrate his birthday.
Yep,
Yeah.
he turned 212.
There you go.
On the 29th.
And just, and if he patented, vulcanized rubber, celebrating those things, those kinds of things. The idea of celebrating positive events and development.
Well, and you talk about celebrating positive events and
Right.
inventions and things like that. Well, he had well over 50 patents.
Oh, really?
And we are actually just working with the 2 intermediate schools in town, that's in 6
Right.
years. We have 2 of them in town,
Right.
and they still do the invention convention. And we're actually going to work with them, and actually somebody from the Central Connecticut State University put together a program that we can teach the kids about invention.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
great.
Well, it won't necessarily always be about how to patent, but how the process of inventing isn't one shot and you're done.
Yeah, that's right.
It's
Constantly
a
moving.
process.
Yeah,
It's a
you're right.
process.
That's right.
It's a process.
That's great. And the thing is, the interesting thing about kids at that age, or their age, you ask them to brainstorm, they're just pie in the sky, much more. Literally, when you become an adult, it's like you probably subconsciously rule things out.
Yes,
You brainstorming, but you do not. Whereas a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old is going to be like, hey, let's just go to Saturn tomorrow, and not worry about whether it's right. Exactly. And that's really the way you're supposed to brainstorm. So that's great.
One of the reasons we wanted to think about this idea about working with kids with inventions, and because the history of Naugatuck is a history of inventors, tinkerers, people who wanted to manufacture things.
Who else besides Goodyear?
Well, we always talk about one a man named Jared Byington, not a famous man, but he was considered the first manufacturer in Naugatuck. And he had a patent for a particular type of nail. And so he was a farmer, but he started a small workshop and produced nails. So he was one, trying to think of who it was. The gooseneck, Even Tuttle developed a hoe that had a gooseneck on the end of it, so that it would protect the backs of farmers.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And he was the father of a man named Bronson Tuttle. Bronson Tuttle and John Howard Wood were partners. That's where they actually made all their money in the malleable iron business. So they started that in 1850 and became quite successful. The Civil War came and they did a lot of manufacturing of malleable iron for the railroads. So eventually they were able to be lamp business.
The interesting thing too is that we talk about, there's a greater Naugatuck historical consortium.
Yes.
And the other thing is, as far as patents go, you've got, again, Derby, the Sterling Piano Factory.
Yes.
You've got the Ansonia Piano Bike. From a ballot perspective, you could literally do a patent day where you talk and you celebrate all the things that have been invented and shove them all after here.
Do it for an entire
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. You're right. I just do a day. That's right.
Yeah.
But literally, like, what happened, or like you talked about the process where you actually have, today, this week we talk about how do we come up with brainstorming. Next week we're actually going to make the drawings, and then you could actually like simulate and maybe come up with some improvements either on existing designs or come up with things that are, are issues outside the ballot.
When you think about something as simple as a vinyl that we kind of take for granted today, washable, sewable, well, Naga High, was a precursor to vinyl, and Naga High was made here in Naugatuck at the chemical company. So, something out of need. We need something, we need a fabric that's washable, waterproof, easy to clean.
Inexpensive.
Now, Goodyear obviously got involved with rubbers and things like that. How did that evolve? When you came up with some of these ideas, the vulcanized rubber and things like that, did it then get manufactured right here, or did you go to, Detroit, or, where was it?
There was a rubber industry in the United States, but the problem with rubber prior in the summertime, so it wasn't a really good product.
Right.
He became obsessed with this problem, and he just did experiment after experiment until he finally developed a way of using chemicals and heat to affect the process. So once he did that, he did not have enough money to establish the industry. He sold the license for that localization process to a man named Samuel Lewis. The Lewis family was very prominent in Naugatuck, and they established the first rubber manufacturing companies here.
Oh, so it was not here.
So it was down here. In fact, it was called Rubber City.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. I have heard that. There's rubber road still, right?
I mean, at its peak, there were 5,000 to 6,000 people who worked in the factories.
When was the time frame?
Well, it started in 1843, and by the time 1900, they were, it was 1892 or 1894, all of the rubber companies in the United States actually consolidated and became the United States Rubber. Eventually, the process, the manufacturing of the product in Naugatuck became only footwear. That was to, they were having trouble with plants in other parts of the United States. So they consolidated all of the footwear processes here in Naugatuck. And I always find one thing interesting about that is people in Naugatuck sometimes will trace their family roots to Williamsport, Pennsylvania, Bristol, Rhode Island, a number of places like that. Those factories closed and people came here to Naugatuck to work in the factory. So that took place in the late 1920s. Then the company continued to expand and it was very profitable and wonderful work going on until things started to go, being produced overseas. And that really started in the 1960s, and by the 1970s, the process of eliminating factories here had begun. So it was a long industry.
We have one volunteer who comes in once or twice a month and helps, and she talks about how in some of the days when the kids were little, if her husband was sick, because I guess he had some diabetes kind of things, if he was sick, then she would go down in the morning and say, look, I'd like to get a job for third shift. They'd say, okay, show up for third shift.
Wow.
Like there was that much work. Yep. So she said, she goes, so I'd go work for a little while, and then I'd get better, and I'd go back home with the kids, and he'd go to work, and then I'd go back to work, and they went back and forth. But it was, the jobs were just there.
And on a personal level, forever indebted to Mr. Goodyear's localization because that's how we're talking about it. You talk about interesting because I thought about that when you were talking about, too brittle. I can imagine because I've used, there's plastic balls they have. The original one we used was one color was arm, and you hit it against the curb, it would shatter if it was too cold. So then it was like a boom to the industry when they came out with a blue, softer, that, but then in the summertime, the cool would get really bluish. With the orange one would actually, but I don't think those are necessarily localized, but those were rubber. But I'm thinking if it was the actual ice hockey puck, that was brittle. I mean, imagine that just shattered. Things like that. So, but that industry. Matter of fact, there's the show, it goes to show how it's made. They had to show that. I never knew how they, I figured that was a stamp, but they just take slabs of rubber and just throw it into these two rollers, and they keep adding chemicals and powders to keep it smooth and together. And then eventually it's a cupcake. And it's interesting. When you think about it, that was going on for a while.
Tires were not done here though.
Oh, no?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Everybody thinks that.
Yes, and they weren't done. There was some retreading that happened after the war. There was all these trucks that were decommissioned that needed tires. So there was some retreading that happened. But the Goodyear Tire Company only has its name from Goodyear, that's it. And it only has its name because Charles Goodyear died penniless.
Oh, really?
Yes, he spent a lot of his
So it
time.
wasn't necessarily, it was sort of like, as opposed to...
No, it
I
was
think because it was a famous name.
I'm pretty sure it came with some money to that next generation. I think the Goodyear company bought the name because by then it was associated with a little bit more prominence, a little more respect, as opposed to what it was when it died. He spent time in debtor's prison.
Oh, really?
His wife must have been a very patient woman.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, he was married twice. He had 9 children with his first wife. He was from Naugatuck. Her name was Larissa Porter, from an old family that had been in Naugatuck for a long time. And she had a lot of relatives here, which over the years helped him out financially quite a bit. But I think about 6 of his children died. There was a lot of debt in that family. They were very, very poor. And any money he ever made, he poured right back into experimentation with rubber.
Oh.
He had, it was highs and lows, really. They had a lot of money and then he was losing. He was in debtor's prison in Philadelphia, Paris, and London. Boston too.
He was at the World's Fair in London. I mean,
Yes.
so I mean, we got around. But his passion was the rubber. It wasn't the money.
If you have any comments on the show, feel free to provide feedback, questions, or suggestions to lookingupvalley@gmail.com or check out our Facebook page and dedicated website. Thank you very much.